What's up, Savage Investors? Welcome back to another episode of a Sit Down with a Savage series. Bryce, how do you like that name?
That's awesome.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
Sit down with Savage.
Sit Down with a Savage.
Can't
And
think of it off
today,
the top. I wonder how it sounds like just letters.
you're not wrong. I've always loved, what's the one I'm looking for? Where it all starts with the same alliteration.
Sidoas.
Ooh. Meaning?
Sit down with a savage. Sidoas.
Damn, that sounds fancy. Well, here we are with another Sidoas. And our special guest today is Bryce, who, surprise, surprise, is one of our moderators. And as you would have seen from previous episodes, our moderators are much more than crypto. And there's a reason why they're our moderators, but there's also another reason why they're fantastic humans. So, Bryce, would you like to tell the universe who you are and, more importantly, who you're not?
Sure. So I guess I'll start with a bit of my background, how I got into crypto and also why it's so significant to me. But also, I guess I'll just start with the roots. So it's funny, when I was 18 years old, I had this life-changing experience where I was sitting by myself at 3 o'clock in the morning. And in that moment, sitting completely alone, stone sober, not on drugs, no cannabis, nothing, just sitting by myself, watching some videos. Within a moment, I just felt this interconnectedness, like this presence of something so powerful and so profound that even to this date, I really struggle to put it into language. But I think that we all know deep down, like what that thing is. Some people call it God, some people call it spirit, the universe, something divine, whatever it is. And so I had this experience and it catapulted me into the, the more like esoteric field. And for a long time, I really devoted myself to a series of spiritual practices. And eventually that led me into the healing and wellness field. And I started getting into some really advanced holistic wellness practices. And I started at my own practice, went to massage school. I've had 15, 20 mentors at this point in my life. Some of them are, I wouldn't call any of them like internationally famous, but they're like, some of them are very well known and, respected. Yeah, exactly. And so I got to learn a lot during that whole journey. And I recently just closed down my practice. And regardless of all this wellness stuff, that's like my heart, man. Focusing on like human connection, like the real world. To me, money and crypto, it's all kind of just a game. But the real world, like the real stuff, the deep conversations, the intimate moments that we get to share with friends and family, when we're by ourselves out in the woods or on a mountain, just living our life, like total presence and embodiment of just that presence. And the reason I got into crypto from the healing space is that I started to realize that, at least for myself personally, something in me felt like I didn't like accepting money for doing healing work.
Explain that a little bit, because even for myself, me and Bryce talk a lot. That's gone over my head. So if it's gone over my head, buddy, I know it's definitely gone over someone else's.
Yes. So for instance, in my practice, right?
Yeah.
I charge an hourly rate for when I work with people. I had monthly package plans and things like that.
Yeah.
Do I value the work I do? Absolutely. Is my work valuable? Absolutely. I'm a valuable person. I have people who want to work with me, who ask me questions every day. I know I'm valuable. So it's not a matter of that. It was more so that something to me felt strange about the financial medium, because our current financial system is so skewed, it's so twisted and corrupted. It just didn't feel like a system I really wanted to interact with and have sort of come into my into my work. I didn't want it to pollute my work at all. I wanted to keep it as pure as possible. And so to me, it was a distraction that I would much rather do without. And I saw opportunity in cryptocurrency to free myself from sort of financial coercive slavery, like a lot of the world, you know, in a lot of ways fall victim to.
Yeah,
just financial freedom, freedom so that I can facilitate the work that I really want to do on Earth. And the reason I got way more into it was,
as everyone's about to find out how deep down that rabbit hole you are.
Yeah. So 8 months ago, I was laying in bed. It must have been like 6 o'clock in the morning. And I just had this incredible dream one night that just, you know, got me into this really like euphoric, beautiful state. And so I'm sitting up in bed in the morning. And then all of a sudden I just feel like that presence, that like the same presence that I had like during that like awakening experience, or whatever you want to call that, right? Yeah. All those years ago. And it was like when I say like I hear something, it's not so much like I hear something, it's just like this knowing, like I know I have to do something. And then for whatever reason, it just unlocks a part of my brain. And I am able to focus, I'm able to absorb knowledge, I'm able to do an exponentially high level of research and be able to retain those things, so long as it's stimulated by this process, this experience. And so that's what happened. I was laying in bed, and all of a sudden I just heard, like, this is what you're supposed to do. You need to devote yourself fully into cryptocurrency starting today. And I said, okay. I literally, from that moment, I took thousands of dollars, invested it in projects that I felt good about. And then this was back before May. So when the May drop came, you know, I didn't really like lose because I held, but a few $1,000s, you know, went down, and like lessons. And I was like, okay, I can't just dabble in this. If I'm going to do this, I have to do this. If I really want to achieve financial freedom as quickly and as effectively as I would like to, that I know that I'm capable of doing, then I need to really be a part of this. And so I just started pretty much making it a full-time commitment. And my healing work, as relevant as it is on a day-to-day basis, kind of got put on the back burner. And that wasn't so saddening to me, because I know that it's who I am. Like, I know that's such a big part of my life and how I want to live, that like when I get together with my friends, my family, my friend, or just people, when they reach out to me, strangers, like I will happily offer what I've learned. And it'll come back more powerfully than before.
It will. Yeah. And it's not unlike crypto. And I think we can both agree, but I'm about to find out there's a small window. There's a small window to access that financial freedom. And there's life after crypto. And I always feel like we're almost like Peter Pan in crypto, where our careers in crypto, when they end, our adult life truly begins. You know, of course, depending on what age you get in. But if we say, hey, look, average investor, 20, 30 that we're speaking to right now, you know, that if we told you, please just dedicate every waking hours for 2 years into this, and you could live the rest of your life financially free, it sounds simple on paper. But when you actually have to go through those 2 years, I think you and I are on the same timeline. I think I'm just over a year now, believe it or not. 2 years does seem like a long time when you're in it, because our concept of time is difficult. It's extremely difficult for our brains to envision our future selves. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, Bryce, because hearing what you've sacrificed and why, and thank you for sharing that with me, because again, I'm finding this all out as well live, is I'm a practicing Stoic. And the whole philosophy of coming closer to death to live a more fulfilled, happier life is contradicting. So I'd love to know what your opinion is on this, where we have to live our lives as if we could die at any moment. But also the dichotomy is if we're going to live forever. And I feel crypto is exactly that, where we have to pour all our resources in, financial advice, that is, pouring all your financial resources into this thing, sacrificing instant gratification, sacrificing a number of things to hopefully in the future, whenever that is, receive X. But we may not live to see that. Have you thought about that, Bryce? And if so, how have you come to peace knowing you may not live to see the fruits of your labor?
What I can say is that I've witnessed my own death, and I've let myself experience that pain, that beauty. And for that reason, I'm not afraid of it. I will do everything in my power to not experience it.
Yeah.
But when and if it comes, I will do my diligence to ensure that I can participate in that experience with grace. And I think that, yeah, I mean, when it comes to that, it's almost like you have those two extremes, right? It's like the people who are like the cigarette smoking adrenaline junkie, like, oh, I could die tomorrow anyway, and I'm just gonna do it. And then you get the people that are just like so like attached to this world that they're just like, no, I need to like be secure and be stable. And if there's anything that I've learned in all of my practices, it's that balance in everything isn't necessary. A balance to materialism, a balance to just, overindulgence or underindulgence, starving or over gluttony, one or the other. Either extremes are not exactly good. So yeah, just approaching that in a balanced way. Some people are like psychonauts, where they're willing to put themselves to those extremes in which they don't need to die to experience death, because they're willing to bring themselves into that state willingly so that they can begin to embody the wisdom that experience teaches you in the living. And then some people actually have to go through the process of death. And you'll hear this time and time again. Like, have you ever heard of someone who died and was like, oh my God, dude, I was surrounded by all these red horned beings and they were shooting fire at me with gasoline? It's just...
I was actually going to say, which I thought you were going to say, was everyone who has that near-death experience, it changes them for the better.
Yes.
No one has a near-death, at least to my knowledge, no one has a near-death experience regardless of what they've lost. And they come back and are pessimistic or have a worse outlook upon life. They all seem to come back as we're generalizing here. We always have to be careful when generalizing, but they always have a more fulfilled, more optimistic outlook upon life.
Yes. And what do we lose?
When you say what do we lose?
When we go through that process, what is it that we lose?
I would argue we lose a number of things. I'll try and keep it to like two. One, we lose the fear of death. And I'll explain if needed in a moment. And number two, we lose, how can I word this? I'm actually going to do what I want with your question and say, actually, we gain perspective that life is suffering. And that if we were to die in this moment, would we be proud? So we gain a better questioning system for ourselves. And again, I'm speaking from a position where I haven't had a near-death experience. However, having spoken, and I do go into a lot of death chat rooms, which many people think, oh, that's so dark and depressing. But Bryce, you understand that actually it makes you realize how great life is, because what could be worse, right?
Yes.
But please, what what are you going to say in terms of what do we lose?
We lose everything that we aren't.
We lose everything that we earned.
In that moment. In that moment.
Mm.
You know, and it's the same old story of the person being on their deathbed, having all of these things that they wish that they had done, not the things that they wish that they had, or the things that they didn't do, you know. And yeah, it seems to me, so the word persona, I forget what language that this comes through, but it actually means mask.
Oh,
yeah.
You keep going.
So,
I'll verify that. Yep, you're right. It's Latin.
Yeah, Latin. Yep. And yeah, one of my mentors, who is a very just a devoted poet, you know, where so many poems memorized, a 93-year-old neuropsychiatrist, very interesting man. And yeah, he was the one that told me about that. And it's fascinating to me that when we take off the mask, when our persona breaks down because who we thought we were dies, we get to experience the truth. And sometimes it does take an actual death and then a rebirth for that to occur. And it doesn't, and you don't even have to necessarily believe in resurrection, because this isn't like a trans life experience. This is, you know, within the same life, but just, you know.
My selfish question, and hopefully other people are thinking this as well, is, Bryce, how can we experience this without a near-death experience?
So this is the thing. I think a lot of people think that the only way to have these types of experiences through the use of drugs, psychedelics, things like that, right?
Yeah.
And I actually don't advocate the use of drugs, psychedelics, or anything for induced psychological experiences, because I've learned that our body has the tools that it needs. If we care for our body as it is, as is, like, if we respected ourselves as if it was, for instance, a temple or something along those lines, if we treated ourselves as sacred, and you learn to use this magnificent, this like truly divine instrument that our consciousness is able to be embodied in, and that we can interact with the world through, this is our conduit. And if we care for our conduit and we learn to use its instruments, the more that we practice with this conduit, then the more effective that we become. And so to experience these things, you can do things like breath work and meditation, but in general, for instance, if you're super anxious, in my experience, anxiety often comes from a few things. Traumatic experiences is one, but then next to that is usually actually just basic lifestyle and dietary things. And that can get very complicated very quickly because every person is going to have a different circumstance. But in general, to seek those things, to start really getting grounded into like the fuel for our bodies within this world. When our bodies are functioning optimally, we don't have as much anxiety. We can focus our mind more effectively. We can have deeper, more rich and profound experiences because the mind doesn't run away quite as much. And so I find that there's a lot of paths that we can take to actually have these experiences. And for each person, it's going to be a little bit different. For some people, they find it after they go and do a cold, like a plunge into the ocean in the winter. For some people, you know, maybe they do go to the jungle and do ayahuasca or some type of hallucinogen. Once again, I don't personally advocate for that, but for some people, that's their journey, and that's how they'll have it. And so I guess to answer that more concisely, like, just continue pondering about it, continue thinking about it and being like, what can I do? And I believe that if you ask, the answers it'll find its way to you in the exact way that you need.
And this is why you're so good at what you do, man, because you could have very easily given a prescription to an audience. And I'm sure many of us would have been like, oh, yeah, meditation, right? Many of us either practice it and could speak highly of what you're prescribing, or there's other people like myself who don't practice it as much as we should, who hear how beneficial it is and are like, yeah, I believe you. But you gave the answer people didn't want to hear but needed to hear, which was, I can't. You're individuals. But one thing we can all do, which does work for every human being, and I'm reading this book right now, Bryce, called Psycho-Cybernetics. Have you heard of it?
Yeah, through you. Yeah, you mentioned it and I looked into it.
Brilliant. So Psycho-Cybernetics, highly recommended by Bob Proctor. If anyone is in personal development, you probably know who Bob Proctor is. 80 probably, and he's been going on like a broken record with the same teachings for, I think he has said, over 60 years. And he recommended this book. And so I listen when someone like him, of course, recommends a book. And this idea that the human brain is very similar to a computer. And now I know I'm speaking to you, Bryce, and I know that could almost be an insult, but in the sense of, okay, let me say there's similarities that can be drawn upon on computers, which is like a missile. It has a navigation system, and when it goes off course, there's things in play that will then change its path to put it back on to its desired path of target. And so our brains are very similar. If we can imagine that, we also can give that feedback. And one thing we can do is if we ask ourselves better questions, we get better answers. And one question that's really helped me, Bryce, I love how we pretty much got 5 minutes and we haven't even talked about crypto, which is fine because it shows we're more than crypto, right?
Yeah.
Which is, we'll talk about that with Marty and Milk Dog. But I really want to stick onto this because this is one of my passions, and I can tell it's not just your passion, it's your expertise, which is the question that really changed my life was through Jordan Peterson's self-authoring course, where you're forced to write about your past, present, and future. And he's got an incredible study of why that's so powerful, about writing about those three, what would you call them? 3 periods of your life?
Yeah, periods.
3 periods, yeah. And the one question that changed my life to keep everyone on the cliff, which is, what would your perfect day look like? And even now, it's probably different to what it was a couple of weeks ago. I would bet the majority of people don't know what their perfect day looks like. From wake up to going to bed, from hour to hour, from who you're with, what country, what breakfast you're having, what time do you wake up, like to almost the obsession level. And what's beautiful about that is if you don't know what you want, how can you expect to get it? And is there a question here? Maybe there's not a question here, Bryce, but I would love to know, because I'm kind of piggybacking off what you said about asking ourselves better questions. What's one question? Hey, I came with the question in the end. What's one question you ask yourself then that keeps your navigation system in line? And yes, I am drinking out of a Disney princess mug because I'm a princess.
Beautiful. Perfect. It's very fitting. I would have to say, that mechanism I like to call the biological compass, shows itself for our partners, for the foods that we eat on a regular basis, for experiences and groups that we may be going around. Discerning fear and emotional responses to a rational biological compass can be challenging at times. So knowing that that compass is there to guide me, knowing that I have this truly magnificent instrument, this divine, when I say divine, by definition, divine is just something that is unfathomable to our minds. It's just completely, it's so complex that we couldn't understand it logically at this point in our evolution, right? So the question that I feel like I ask myself every single day that helps keep me sort of aligned in listening is, am I doing this because I'm listening to myself? Or am I doing this because I'm seeking something? Like, am I seeking stimulation from it, essentially? So am I doing this because there is this genuine feeling of I am supposed to be doing this? Or am I doing this because I'm trying to, maybe I'm eating some chips because I'm emotionally eating, or maybe I'm, you know, making too many phone calls because I really am uncomfortable with being alone. And we all have different feelings on different days regarding this. Yeah, just I think that question of discernment, like, well, why am I doing what I am doing in this moment? Not in a way that's judgmental, just in a way that's like asking for clarity. Sometimes I'm like, oh yeah, I'm doing this because I'm stressed out, and then I still do it anyway. No shame, no judgment.
I always say we're forever negotiating with our conscience.
Yeah.
You know, to give a very simple example, you open the fridge, there's a leftover Indian, or you can make something fresh, and your conscience is like, oh, but you remember what happened last time when you had the Indian, Jordan?
You didn't want to see that toilet.
But yeah, you think, well, you remember the toilet, but you're like, oh, maybe this time's different, or oh, I'll push through anyway, right?
Yeah.
And of course you do it, and you already know what the outcome's going to be, and the outcome happens, and you're like, see, I told you, right? And so we're always negotiating with ourselves. And like I said, we won't get into it now. Who are we negotiating with? Is it our consciousness? Is it our subconscious? But it comes back to what you're saying, which is the biggest fear is we don't pause and question why we're doing what we're doing. Yeah. We don't actually engage with the negotiation of our consciousness, right? I'm talking from a place of, hey, I proactively do this. I open up the fridge. Easy, I've got pizza in the fridge right now. I know right now I'm going to open it, but I know deep down my stomach's going to be fine. I'm going to have great short-term energy for the next 3 hours. That's good. But many people don't pause. Even if we say you're not being present, I think that's a good argument to make. And that's what I love about affirmations. And I'm going to try my hardest not for us to go too off tangent, but I find affirmations, questions, they're almost a reset cue for us. You know, I'd love to know on this final note, Bryce, just because I feel like we can talk for hours. I know we do, because I listen to you in Discord all the time, which is, if there's one thing you would love someone watching to start to implement in their life right now, whether it's affirmations, whether it's questions, whether it's contemplating their own death, whether it's exploring some of the term we used for your medical practice was, you gave it a label.
Oh yeah, so I'll say it like on the recording so people can hear it. Basically, I don't like the term biohacker because it's become very trendy, but by definition, that's kind of what it is. It's taking sort of ancient lifestyle practices, primal lifestyle practices, and modern science, and marrying them together in a sort of blend to create sort of like a holistic overview of the body. So what's our evolutionary biology like, and then what is our, you know, modern understanding of these things like, and how can we use both of those together to regain our health, attain optimal health.
Beautiful. So now that everyone has a hopefully crystal clear understanding of the services that you provide, what would you love everyone to remember?
The most powerful thing that any single person can do for themselves and for this world is to learn how to genuinely love yourself. I know that that's so common. That's so common. So many people say that, but I mean it. I mean that. There's nothing more powerful than learning how to love yourself, to be the walking embodiment of love for yourself, for the life that you live. Because most of the chaos that is created in this world comes from an emptiness. And when we are walking love authentically, there is no emptiness. And we have moments where we feel it, where we feel that completion, that genuine sense of love for oneself. Sometimes we've never experienced that. And when we first do, you know, we can kind of find it in our animal friends, right? In dogs or in cats, because it's so unconditional in a certain sense. Yeah, there's just this deeper layer, this deeper level of love that as long as that's there and that connection with yourself is strong, you become so unmovable from outside circumstances. Home is wherever you are, and it will always be that way. So whatever that path looks like to you individually, follow that and pursue it diligently. And that is an incredible compliment to not only the world, but to your life and to every person and experience that you get to touch. So that's what I want everyone to remember.
I hope whoever needed to hear that, this is perfect timing. And for everyone else, we all needed reminding of this. One practical thing I've started doing is giving myself a high five in the mirror. Someone in our group shared, I don't know if it was you, but someone shared in the motivational channel Discord this clip from this woman who was on Tom Bilio's, I can't pronounce his last name, Bilau's channel.
Oh, yep.
And she was talking about self-love and how we need to say more positive things in the mirror to ourselves. Personally, like, okay, I look in the mirror when I brush my teeth and I do my hair, but like, how many of us actually look in the mirror and admire what we look like? And we don't, because we feel like we're being vain or we get busy. And what you're saying is, politely, fuck feeling vain, love yourself, do it often. And I feel, as we're creatures of habit, we protect our habits protect us. One thing I've implemented is, yeah, giving myself that high five every time I see myself in the mirror. And so, oh, hello, dog. Talk about unconditional love. We can't just wait for our feline friends to give us that love. It needs to come within. So thank you for that, Bryce. Anything you want to add on before we wrap up this sensational sit down?
I think there's two final things. One of them is to not mistake love for attachment, because it's very easy to become attached to a concept of who we think that we should be. And I'm not an anti-ego person. There are some people who are anti-ego maximalists. I am not that way. I embrace my ego because it's part of my interface with this world. And so long as I'm here in this body, I have an ego. And everyone else does too. So I don't dissociate from that very honest truth, which is that we all have an ego.
Yeah. Create
a healthy relationship with it. Yeah. And then just to bring it all back full circle back to crypto, this market is intense and it requires a lot of emotional discipline and a lot of conviction to not allow this to take over your life, because sort of like what you had touched on a bit earlier, it's, we have a life after this. Yeah. We have a life during this too. We don't want to let this consume too much, because then what is the price really?
Yep.
Yeah. So don't get super consumed. If you do it sometimes, that's fine. Just make sure you always come back home. What's really important.
I speak to a lot of people, Bryce, and a lot of people in crypto, successful and on their way, and I don't think I've heard any of them depict it in such an articulate way as make sure you remember to come back home. That is a visual image everyone can apply not just to crypto, but to any part of their life, because I'm a big believer in taking the abstract understandings and putting them in simple terms. Right? Communicating is a true art. It's a true art form. And you are one of those people who you have unlocked that art form. And I'm very fortunate to know you, and very excited for everyone else to get to know who you are, because you are able to serve in a way where I'd like to think we can all live more fulfilled lives. Actually, to finish off, Bryce, I don't want to let you go, but what is your goal, as cliche as it sounds, with your practice, not your meaning of life, because I know, cool, that's a deep one to go into right now. But yeah, what motivates you to keep helping others?
You know, I think, first of all, I could say the same to you about all of these things. I think that you're a very beautiful human being. And I see the work that you do in your service and how you engage with people and the authenticity behind your words and everything. And it's an honor to be here with you. You know, on a daily basis, I think what it comes down to is I ask myself this, and I believe that all of our consciousness are interwoven as a species. And so I think of it like this, like, if I make a bad decision today, what is that donating into the jar, into the ocean of consciousness for humanity? And how may that influence somebody in the future? And it, I guess one of the more commonly referred to sort of theories on this was the 100th monkey experiment, where they essentially gave these young, well, I think it wasn't necessarily young monkeys, but they gave, there was a group of islands, and they were studying these species of monkeys, and they gave them sweet potatoes and they put them in the sand, and the monkeys didn't like the sand. So the young ones figured out that they could go and they could put them into the ocean or into a lake, and they could wash them off, and that made them more enjoyable.
Okay.
And what they did is, you know, the adults, it took them some time to like adopt this practice of cleaning off the sand. What they realized is that all of the island, all of the species of monkeys among these islands started to adopt the same habit without having the same experience. So something within them changed before they consciously learned that. And so I think of that concept, right? Because if that can happen with monkeys, humans are probably not far from that. And so with all of these things that we're doing to improve ourselves, I think that we're actually donating, I guess, to put it in this terms, like a blueprint, almost like a conscious blueprint, so that somebody else can take that and then run with it and improve upon it, because that's what evolution is. And that's what we're meant to do, is, you know, take what's there and make it better. So
I always say, Bryce, this knowledge isn't ours. We've got to pass it on.
Yep. And that is a big goal of mine one day, to teach some of these things. You know, I don't see myself as a master. I don't see myself as, I'm just Bryce. I'm living my life and I'm listening to my heart. I'm no different than you or anyone else. I think that we're all just as capable of anything we set our minds to as any other person.
Tremendous. I definitely feel very, 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 very lucky to have this one-to-one with you, because we're used to being in a group and I'm always a listener from afar. So to be selfish and pick your brain, like I said, I did sit down for two reasons. One, for me to get to know you better, and two, to pass that knowledge on to someone else. So if people would love to stay in touch with you, Bryce, and of course I'll put all the relevant links below, what would be the best way?
Well, I'm not on social media, and
I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, I don't use social media. Pretty much just Discord.
Cool.
Discord is it. In the Pulse server. And then, I know that's like what's weird, but like that's pretty much it, man. I have Discord, and aside from that, I have my phone that I have a few people I keep in touch with.
That's cool.
Yep.
That's powerful, man. Well, look, we'll have a chat offline, whether that's a Calendly link where people can get hold of you for consulting, website.
Not doing any of it for the moment. Yeah. So I like when I closed my practice down, it's like that was it for the moment. It'll open up again when my heart tells me to. It'll come back.
And I hope whoever's watching, you'll be there when it opens back up, because wow. I know I'll be there, Bryce, that's for sure.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Okay, beautiful. Well, with that being said, I'm gonna go eat that pizza, which I know I need. And I'm gonna let you go back to your universe, or no, our universe, and keep doing what you're doing, man. It's a pleasure to share the universe with you, man.
Yes. Be present with your pizza. Enjoy it. Love it.
I will. And for everyone else watching at home, remember, whether it's crypto that you are throwing yourself into, whether it's a sport, whether it's medical practice, as Bryce said, remember to come back home. That being said, Bryce, it's been a pleasure.
You as well.
Ciao for now, everyone. Beautiful, and cut.